You ever just stand at a harbor and watch one of those massive ships just glide in? It looks so smooth, right? Almost silent. And you just gotta wonder, how on earth do they park that thing? Because let me tell you, what looks so effortless is actually one of the most complex, high stakes moves in the entire world.
All right, so let's really get into it. First, you have to wrap your head around the sheer scale of what we're talking about. This isn't like parking your car or even a big rig. We're talking about a floating building, literally as long as a skyscraper is tall. It can weigh as much as a small city. So yeah, parking it, that's not just hard, it's a full-on battle against the laws of physics. And see, the real trick isn't just the size you can see. Nope. It's all the powerful, invisible forces that are constantly pushing and pulling on that ship. So, what are they? And how in the world do the pilots win that fight? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the ship itself, because it's designed with this built-in conflict right in its DNA. It's a constant tug of war between being super stable out on the open ocean and needing to be nimble and agile when it gets into a crowded port. And the number one enemy here, it's something you probably remember from high school physics: inertia. You know, an object in motion wants to stay in motion. Well, when that object weighs 200,000 tons, it really, really wants to stay in motion. These things don't have brakes like a car. Stopping one is a long game that starts miles, sometimes even hours, before they get anywhere near the dock.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. To cross an ocean, you want a ship that has what they call course-keeping stability. Basically, it's designed to go straight and stay straight, which is great for efficiency out on the big blue. But that exact feature that makes it so good for the long haul makes it a total pain to turn. The ship is literally designed to fight against the one thing the pilot desperately needs it to do in port: be agile. So, okay, as if wrestling with the ship's own physics wasn't a big enough headache, as soon as it gets near the coast, a whole new challenger enters the ring: Mother Nature. And she does not play fair. The key idea to get here is something called windage area. It sounds technical, but it's simple. It's just the part of the ship that's sticking up out of the water. But to the wind, that whole surface, all the steel, the bridge, every single one of those containers, it's just one giant sail. And this shows you exactly what I mean. Look at the container ship on the left, stacked to the sky with boxes. It's like a giant wall, right? It just catches the wind like you wouldn't believe. Now compare that to the bulk carrier on the right, which rides much lower in the water. It's pretty obvious which one is going to be a total nightmare for a pilot trying to handle a strong crosswind. And listen, we're not talking about a light breeze here. In the port of Salerno, which is a great example from our sources, pilots are dealing with 40-knot winds. That's nearly 75 kilometers per hour. It's like a constant invisible giant just shoving the skyscraper-sized ship wherever it wants it to go. So just to recap, we've got a practically unstoppable object being pushed around by an invisible force. And now comes the really intense part, the grand finale. They call it the last mile, threading that needle into the port and getting it tied up safely. And it is anything but a straight line. Just look at this track plot from an actual maneuver. It's this incredibly delicate dance made up of tiny, precise little adjustments. A nudge here, a slight turn there, all while battling that insane inertia and the howling wind. It's a high-stakes ballet, and one wrong move, well, it could be catastrophic. But here's the thing you have to remember. The pilot is not doing this dance alone, not even close. Getting one of these giants docked safely is a total team effort. It's a symphony of coordination between a whole crew of experts and some seriously powerful machines. And the size of the team is just, wow. For just one big ship in one port, you're talking about expert pilots, a whole fleet of tugboats that act like these powerful little sheepdogs, mooring operators on the dock ready to catch the lines. It's like a small, super specialized army, and they all have one single mission. So a big question, right? How do you get good at a job like this? The stakes are astronomical, and a mistake in the real world is just unthinkable. You can't exactly take a billion-dollar ship out for a joyride to practice. The answer? A pretty amazing piece of technology. And this quote really nails it. Simulators. They create this totally safe virtual world where pilots can go up against the absolute worst-case scenarios over and over again. They can gain experience, explore what's possible, all without putting a single person or a piece of gear at risk. And I mean, they practice everything. Getting the fuel for a brand new type of ship, mastering the tricky ins and outs of a specific port. And yeah, you better believe they practice wrestling with those 40-knot winds until reacting becomes second nature, pure muscle memory. Now check this out. This is just incredible. On the left, that's the view from inside the simulator. On the right, that's the real deal. The accuracy is just mind-blowing. It's so good that a pilot can train for docking in Italy while sitting in an office halfway across the globe, seeing the exact same things they'd see in real life. It is the ultimate dress rehearsal. But here's the twist. The story of a safe docking doesn't actually start with the pilot. It doesn't even start in the simulator. To really get the full picture, we have to rewind way back. Because the choreography for this dance was being written years, even decades before the ship even existed.
That's right. Every single time a ship slides perfectly into its berth, that's just the final moment in a super long story of careful engineering, deep scientific research, and a ton of testing. And it all starts small, like really small. Before a single piece of steel is cut for the real ship, engineers build these perfect little-scale models. Then, they test them in these massive water tanks to see exactly how the full-size version is going to handle, how it'll turn, how it'll drift, how it'll react to everything. To get even more precise, they do something called a captive model test. This is wild. They hook the model up to a robotic arm that basically forces it through all sorts of maneuvers. This lets them measure every single force from the water, down to the tiniest detail. All that data gets crunched into a perfect mathematical model, a digital twin of the ship. And that is what becomes the brains of those hyper-realistic simulators we were talking about. And this planning isn't just about the ships. It goes from the micro all the way to the macro. Entire ports are designed and simulated years before a single shovel hits the ground. How wide should the channel be? Where does the breakwater go? Every little detail is part of a grand plan to make that final, delicate dance as safe and predictable as it can possibly be. So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? That seemingly simple, graceful arrival of a huge ship is anything but simple. It's a quiet masterpiece, really. A combination of physics, decades of planning, and thousands of hours of practice, all coming together for that one perfect, unseen dance. Which leaves us with one last thing to chew on. These ships, they're only getting bigger. So as these giants of the sea keep growing, you have to wonder, how is this incredible ballet between human skill, raw machine power, and brilliant engineering going to have to change to keep up?